Despite two brutal baseball games played in Milwaukee so far, the New York Mets can somehow still clinch on Sunday. We're going to talk about this crazy wild card race throughout today's edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. All right, let's talk about this. I don't even know where to start because luckily, the Arizona Diamondbacks are collapsing parallel to the Mets right now, and it has made it so the Mets still have a really good shot to make the playoffs, but man, have we lost confidence in this team in a hurry. To think about where we were at as a fan base, how you felt on Monday morning, to where we're at now, it is drastic, the difference. And in the final segment, I'm going to try to pump you with a little bit of optimism, but I need to put myself on the therapy couch. I want to console you guys. I do, the listeners of this show. Those of you who tune in every day, and I know there's a lot of you who get emotional about this stuff, and I've gotten the subtext from my Locked On Mets insiders. My dad, me and him went back and forth tonight a lot. He was not happy. He was losing it, and I've always said my dad is my pulse of the Mets fan base. You know, he's been at this for a lot longer than me. Born in 1965, the 86 Mets were his team. He is like prototypical Mets fan. I think, honestly, the prototypical Mets fan that listens to this show. I'm sure a lot of you, a similar age, similar experience. And so as my dad's losing it and I'm right there with him, it's hard for me to continue to say, they're going to be good. And there was a point in the game where it was 2-0. I said, hey, Dad, the Mets are going to be all right. But then you're watching it all unfold, and it's just awful baseball. There's no other way to say it. It's just the bats. You get two hit shutout the Brewers put together in a bullpen game. And yes, you want to make excuses for the Mets. Not easy to win a bullpen game when the bullpen is the Brewers bullpen because they have one of the best bullpens in baseball. Not easy to shake off the rust after 2 days of not playing. You can make all those excuses, but look at the 3 games we've seen from the Mets this week with playoffs on the line. This is a team that all of a sudden is crumbling. And you look at this core, and I hate to say, oh, well, now the Mets shouldn't sign Pete Alonso because here it is again. But I'm sorry, in the Pete Alonso era for the New York Mets, what have you seen? 2019, the Mets, remarkable second half run, get right back in it. But there was a set of series that I remember distinctly. This is the first season of this show, by the way, 2019, my first year hosting Locked On Mets, where the Braves came into town, if I'm not mistaken. They swept the Mets, and the Cubs swept the Mets. They lost 6 in a row, and then they never really got back into playoff position, if my memory serves correctly. You look at their record in August, record in September, it's actually really good, but there was a 6-game losing streak that really just cost them. And the Brewers snuck in and grabbed that spot over the Mets. 2020, you just throw it out. Who cares? 2021, Jacob deGrom goes down. The team crumbles. Can't really blame anybody there, although the offense was horrible in that second half. 2022, I don't need to talk about that collapse of dropping the division when you had it in hand. And then the playoff series against the Padres. Then last year was a complete and utter disaster. And then here you go. What's looking like another collapse. And the crazy thing is, because of how things have broken out here, there's a world where the Mets are in a position right now. If the Diamondbacks lose their final game on Sunday, the Mets will have essentially had, if you go back to the beginning of this series, 5 chances to win 1 game. And they might lose 6 in a row to end their season, and that could be it. That is what all fans are thinking about right now. That is the worst nightmare that is staring all of us in the face. And I went into this series trying to shake off that game that happened in Atlanta, trying to put you all on that therapy couch, trying to tell you all, hey, believe in this team. Get fired up. The Mets can win it. And then you watch these games, man. As a Mets fan, at a certain point, like, how much bad baseball can you take when you have so many skeletons in the closet of what happened in the past, so many past traumas that all rise to the surface in a moment like this? The Brewers just look like a wagon that the Mets can't stop. Now, I'll tell you why in the final segment today, this could all end up being one of those situations where a week from now, just like the narrative flipped on this season so drastically, a week from now, the Mets could be in the NLDS and everything can change. But this team has to show it. And what I'm seeing is a lack of playoff experience biting them. Guys that are feeling the weight of these at-bats and just are not coming through. I think the perfect example of this actually is on the pitching front today. Jose Quintana looked pretty good. I mean, through strikes, struck out 9, most amount of strikeouts had in a start all season. He did make it out of the 5th, but still, I thought he threw the ball pretty well, all things considered. Phil Maton comes in to bail Quintana out of a jam in that 5th inning, and he does his job. The combination of Phil Maton and Ryan Stanek out of the Mets bullpen got 8 outs, 6 strikeouts. The combination of Reed Garrett and Danny Young combined to give up 4 runs over 3 outs. That's playoff experience. That's the difference. Phil Maton and Ryan Stanek, they've been there before in the actual playoffs. They're not fazed by facing the Brewers game 161, game 159. They're not fazed by that. Reed Garrett, deer in headlights. And I think Reed Garrett is almost the face of what you're seeing with all these at-bats. Pete Alonso, I mean, it's hard to advocate for the Mets to sign Pete Alonso, and I'm wearing an LFGM shirt. I have loved everything about Pete Alonso's career with the New York Mets, and I want to see him finish as a Met. But in these moments when it's just get ahead 0-2, throw some sliders away, he's going to strike himself out, it's hard to buy in. Brandon Nimmo not getting the job done. Lindor is just hurt and doing the best he can, but it just doesn't look like a team that can make a deep run. Now, here's the thing. With all of that said, it's right there for the Mets. It's right there. I'm watching 3 games at once like all of you, right? And I actually should mention this part before I talk about why it's right there for the Mets, because it's right there for the Mets because of the Diamondbacks. But the Braves, you're watching a team that has done it before, knows how to come through. And the most frustrating part of tonight for me was watching the Mets as it's slipping away and slipping away and slipping away. And then it's Travis d'Arnaud that hits the walk-off homer for the Braves. Like, really? It's Travis d'Arnaud. The Braves couldn't hit tonight. They scored 1 run through the first 8 innings, and that run came on an error. They had Jorge Soler, who doubled. He's standing on second base. Michael Lorenzen gets a comebacker. Should be an easy play. Terrible throw goes in the dugout. Braves get gifted a run. That's all they scored through the first 8 innings. And then Travis d'Arnaud comes through. Big Braves win. They're now in the driver's seat. We'll talk about all the scenarios in the next segment. Meanwhile, the Mets cannot score a run, and they only get 2 hits. One of those hits, a leadoff double from Starling Marte, and they can't bring him in what was at the time a 2-0 game. Can the Mets actually bounce back? Can they make the playoffs? The fact is, it's actually really easy to, because the Diamondbacks, they got no hit through 6 innings. Continuing their own collapse. They've lost 5 of their last 6. No one scored in that game until the 9th inning. Then Kyle Higashioka hits a 2-run homer. September call-up, Brandon Lockridge hits his first career home run. Jurickson Profar singles. Donovan Solano hits a 2-run homer. 5-run meltdown by the Diamondbacks bullpen. They lose 5-0. So now it's right there. It was one of the highlights of my night. My dad texted me Nice victory for the Padres. I guess the Mets have company in the world of can't hit for a curse word that rhymes with hit. And here we are. What I want to talk about in the next segment here is why the Mets can actually still clinch on Sunday, because it's insane that that's still a possibility. We'll go through that in just a minute. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. You watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends. Become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. So you can turn $10 into $1,000. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going to go off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Stay up to date with all the latest in the world of sports when you check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Our goal has been to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the season. We're within 200, so I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. All right, let's talk about these standings. What's insane about all of this is the Mets are still right there to make a playoff berth. If the Diamondbacks lose and the Mets win on Sunday, they're in. We're popping champagne on Sunday that you don't have to play the doubleheader. It would be Padres, Braves, Mets, Brewers. Assuming Major League Baseball doesn't ask them to play a doubleheader for seeding, and why would they? Why would they? The Mets, as bad as it's looked in Milwaukee, they're not going to say, oh, we really want to exhaust our pitching to try to sweep the Braves just so that we can play the Padres instead of this Brewers team that we have no hope against. But you really look at it, it's that simple for the Mets. That's the easiest thing to root for on Sunday. Mets win, Diamondbacks lose, they're in. Now, the Braves are sitting pretty. One more win, they're in. So in a weird way, if you're a Mets fan, you're sort of rooting for the Braves to win because then they should have nothing to play for on Monday. Now, would the Braves just take those games off if the Mets needed them? Would they not try to beat the Mets twice? It's the Atlanta Braves. I don't know who they would pitch. They certainly would not pitch their top guys, but I don't think they're just going to hand it to the Mets. Now, the reason why I was still rooting for the Braves is because then you don't have to face Chris Sale and or Spencer Schwellenbach in that doubleheader. You'd be facing Lord knows who. I really don't know which way they go. Because they would have Fried, Sale, and Schwellenbach available, maybe you'd face Charlie Morton, but they'd probably still want to have Morton available in some capacity for that series. Although, I don't know. Ronaldo Lopez looked pretty good today. So maybe they just wouldn't care as much about Morton. Regardless, you don't want to get to that point. And sweeping a doubleheader, it's tough. It's really hard to do. If the Mets win on Sunday, even if the Diamondbacks win, they just have to win one of two in the doubleheader. They will go into that doubleheader, and it's just survive and get to a win. And honestly, the Braves might be in a position with their pitching and just thinking about a series coming up against the Padres where they might just say, you know what, whatever. Let's just pitch, Ozzie Albies. I don't know. Probably not, but there would be such little incentive for the Braves in that doubleheader, again, other than just trying to end the Mets season. It's tough. It's tough to really think about all the different scenarios when this Mets team just looks like a team that can't hit all of a sudden, but it's right there for them. The simplest way to look at it, because of where the Diamondbacks are at, if you win 2 of your final 3, you're in. And if the Diamondbacks lose, it's literally win 1 of the next 3 games. And you are in. But it just feels like even though it's so simple, can the Mets really do it? It's going to be David Peterson on the mound. And at first, I didn't love that decision because my head was already on the doubleheader. But when you think about the fact that it could just be 1 win you're in or 2 wins, you might as well just go to your best option now. And ideally, if you have to win 2 games, it's Peterson to Severino, and you never get to a point where you need Tyler or McGill to pitch you in. But I don't know how the Mets are going to play it when it comes to their pitching. It doesn't really matter unless they can hit. They have to find a way to get these bats going. And I don't know the answer at this point. They rolled out the lineup that I pretty much asked them to today, and it got 2-hit shutout. My guess is you go back to Tyrone Taylor over Harrison Bader. Starling Marte got one of the hits today. I'd keep him in the lineup. I would certainly wouldn't want to see Jesse Winker out there. Do you go back to JD Martinez with Lindor at shortstop, or do you stick with Acuna and Lindor at DH? We'll see what they decide to do. But this is a Mets team that will only miss the playoffs by their own doing. It's that simple. The crazy thing is if they can make it, I can see a world where the New York Mets do what the Texas Rangers did last year. What did the Texas Rangers do? Oh, they won the World Series. Did I really just make that type of a declaration? Yes, only because the Rangers backed in last year in a similar way to what we're seeing right now. And any team can get hot and flush a horrible week. So do the Mets still have that in the cards? I want to close the show there, but another quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. GameTime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. With GameTime Picks, they'll filter out the fluff and only show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste any time searching through thousands of tickets. You can just find the best possible deals. Told my brother-in-law to get his tickets for GameTime. He was there tonight. Poor guy went and just saw a brutal game. Sounds like he's still going to take my nephews to Sunday's game. Mets Brewers, their first ever big league game to watch. So I'm counting on Derek and Austin to give us some luck here and help the Mets get to a victory. But if you want to go to that game or any of the games in the stretch, or when the season ends, you just want to catch a concert, a theater event, whatever it is, download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's game time. Last year, the Texas Rangers had a very similar season to the 2022 Mets, where they were leading their division for a large portion of the year, but they collapsed down the stretch. They had a 2.5 game lead on September 25th. They had just won their 6th straight game. They had 6 games left to play. They were right there on their way to a division title. They lost 4 of their final 6 games, including game 162. The Astros won their final game, stole the division from them at the 11th hour. They went into that last day with a 1-game lead, but the Astros had the tiebreaker, and they got the first-round playoff bye. The Rangers had to go into the wild card round. Now, once there, they had no problem. They swept the Rays. They went into the ALDS. They swept the Orioles. They then met the Astros in the ALCS, beat them in a 7-game series, and went on to win the World Series. Their pitchers going into the playoffs, Jordan Montgomery, Nathan Eovaldi, and a big old question mark. And they found their way through the playoffs, and they ended up making it all the way to the promised land. Now, I'm not predicting the New York Mets are going to win the World Series, but could this look a lot different a week from now? Yes. Could something unforeseeable happen based on our last 48 hours of watching Mets baseball? Yeah. On Sunday, maybe the Mets have a big first inning and all the pressure melts away. Maybe Pete Alonso hits a big home run. Maybe. And the Mets, with a big lead, get a stellar performance from David Peterson. He pitches them into the playoffs. The Diamondbacks lose. You don't have to play the doubleheader. You get a day off. You can set up your pitching. You go with Luis Severino game 1, Sean Manaea game 2. You all of a sudden found the secret sauce to beating this Brewers team. You sweep the Brewers in the wild card round, and we're just reeling like, what happened? How did this Mets team all of a sudden propel themselves into an NLDS a weekend after what we just watched? It is still there. And I know it's hard as a Mets fan after what we've watched this week to go in with confidence. And honestly, I can't even ask you to, because I can't tell you that I'm going to be watching this game on Sunday feeling great about the New York Mets being able to beat this Brewers team. But baseball is a funny sport. And what I can't shake is what I have felt watching this team since the beginning of June. When my dad and I went to that series in Washington, D.C. and saw the Mets sweep the Nationals right before the London series, and then they went on to have the greatest run of any team in Major League Baseball from that moment, beginning of June, all the way up to this past week. Can they rally back here? Can this lineup finally show what we've seen throughout different spurts of this season? A week ago, they strung together 3 consecutive games, scoring 10 runs each night. They found a way against the Phillies to pile on that first game in Philadelphia, hostile environment, big series a couple weeks ago. Was it 9 runs that they scored that game? There is still that lineup that we have seen that's really long, that gets hits top to bottom. But that lineup has just dissipated in this series. And I wonder if they can finally wake up and just win one game. Because I think if they win this game, even if the Diamondbacks win, I think they can carry that momentum into Atlanta. I'm assuming the Braves are going to win. I just would be stunned if they didn't. And then you go into Atlanta against a Braves team that probably does not want to play a doubleheader. And I think you win that first game and you go into a playoff round and you see what happens. I don't want to give up on this Mets team. There's 2 days left in this season for now. Let's see if they can get back up off the mat one more time, because they've done it time and again. If you think about it this way, go back to May 30th. The idea when the Mets were 11 games under, whatever it was at that point in time, that they would be in this position now, that task for 100+ game stretch of having to get to the finish line was so much more daunting than just winning 2 games. Win 2 of your final 3, regardless of what anybody else does. The New York Mets are in the playoffs. 2 of 3. Can they get the job done? We will find out. I will be back for another edition of Locked On Mets if everything breaks right. If the Mets win, Diamondbacks lose, I'm going to go live on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe. We're going to have a lot of fun, and we are going to revel in an incredible turn of events. If the Mets win and they don't clinch anything, I don't know. I might still go live, to be honest with you, just because I'll be so happy for a win. So, yeah, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Mets on our YouTube channel, because I might be itching to go live if they win. If they lose, I am not going live. I will lick my wounds, and I will give you guys a show for Monday morning to break down the doubleheader that at that point would be do or die, whether it's win 1 or win 2. All comes down to the Diamondbacks. The scenarios will get easier after Sunday. The Mets will either be in or they'll have a very specific amount of games to win in a doubleheader. We will talk about all that tomorrow. I appreciate all of you who tuned into the show today. Good luck watching. Hope you all enjoy some time with your family, watch this game, and get a good result for once. Certainly know I'm hoping for it. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every day. Now for your second watch, head over to YouTube and check out the first ever 24/7 streaming channel covering everything in the world of sports with our local hosts from each team, league-wide hosts from each league. Find Locked On Sports today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube.